It's going to be a very, very intense journey.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show that you need to know. This is episode 91 of Frame Skip. I am your host for the night, Seth Slakehouse, joined by Austin, the Athenian Eller. Austin,
that's right.
How's Greece?
Oh, it's great. You know, it's there's some things that you do on the toilet that you shouldn't be doing, and this is one of those times.
What? You know what? I thought I was prepared for anything.
I never said
really.
The people listening don't know where I'm recording this podcast from.
Yes.
That's all I'm saying.
You said Greece, so now we think you're in a bathroom in Greece.
Can you confirm, Austin, are you currently pooping?
I cannot confirm.
He cannot confirm or deny. And rounding out the show tonight, it is George, the rambling, gambling, lady stealing, backpack dealing, best flannel in the business, George Loftus.
I sell backpacks? I'm a backpack dealing?
Yeah, dude.
Oh my god, yeah, what do you want? I got North Face, I got Columbia.
You got Adidas?
Swiss Army?
Nike?
Swiss Army backpack?
You know what always disgusts me?
Okay,
just to link into that is that there's always those super cool backpacks that you find at like Borders or Barnes and Noble or like Hot Topic, and like the nerdy Pokemon backpacks, like the Star Wars backpacks, and you look at the price tag and they're like $150 because they're from BioWorld, and they're like super cheap. I hate that.
I got LL Bean. I got Fayal Raven. I've got I got those Nike string ones where it's just like an open bag in the strings or the straps and you just tighten the top one. Love those.
They break
when I used to go to the gym. Great gym backpacks.
Gym bags. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, Austin.
Okay,
I just want to let people know about my wares.
I need to do like a like let's roll it back. Let's roll it back a second. Seth, you said Borders?
Yeah.
Borders has not been open in like 10 years.
Well, like sometimes you just get caught up and you lose yourself. All right?
I just looked it up, and Borders ceased operations in 2011. So I just wanted to put that out there.
God, I miss Borders.
There is a store that went where our Borders, they immediately took over, right? And they are the exact same store. Called
Is
Books
it
a Million.
Books a Million? Yeah, buddy.
Oh, yeah. Books a Million's great.
So I'm wondering, did Books a Million buy out Borders?
Probably. Like, I assume like if there's like massive real estate, like they could probably be like, okay, we're going to buy, 600 stores, 400 stores, whatever. And because like that was like part of like a liquidation, I assume a bankruptcy process, or like they just absorbed all the stock and then rebranded it kind of.
Okay. So in breaking news from February of 2011, Books a Million has acquired 39 Borders properties.
There it is, dude.
So there you go.
Wow. It's so weird because one of those is in Bangor, Maine. It's just weird to me that like 1 in 39 and one of them happens to be in Maine. That's just wild to me. Sorry, nothing happens
1 in 39 here. And one of them happens to be at my mall.
Oh my god. Do you have half of a medallion that you were given at birth?
I may. I gotta look at my stuff.
Half a medallion given at birth.
I gotta look through my stuff. It might be in there.
Okay.
I got a memory box. Anyway, how you doing tonight, George?
I'm doing well. I saw the Batman this past weekend. My second time in a theater in the past 2 years. I went to see Goonies last year.
Wait, what?
Oh, my local theater was like running old movies, and so I went to see Goonies.
Gave me a heart attack for a second, thinking that I somehow missed a Goonies reboot. And
oh no, God, I would love to write that. By the way, that'd be so much fun. Goonies is like one of my all-time favorite movies. Like, if I'm having a great day, I'll watch Goonies. If I'm having a bad day, I'll watch Goonies. If I'm bored, I'll watch Goonies. Like, it just fills every possible mood.
And you get that classic line, "Up there, it's their time. Up there, down here, this is our time."
Did you ever watch that show, Happy Endings?
What? No.
Oh, it's really funny. It was an ABC show. It was about like 4 20-somethings or 6 20-somethings like living in Chicago. Dumb name, but like a genuinely hilarious show. And someone was like giving a speech, and it like went from when it started out as like a Goonies speech, and then she just like quickly morphs into "It's their time up there. The Russians had their time up there," and it just like quickly morphs into the miracle speech.
God,
Really good
I want to
stuff.
stroke my beard, but there's nothing here anymore.
I saw the Batman. I don't listen to a lot of gaming podcasts, but I listen to one called Easy Allies. I really enjoy that because that's like the old game trailers guys and girls. And one of them, the guy who like narrated every games trailer review or video ever, is this dude named Brandon Jones, who I like love, like the work they all do.
Best voice in the business.
His kid has been sick for the past couple weeks, but he gave like an update today on like their Patreon saying that he's doing really well. So like I'm gonna count that as just like a big W, because I can't imagine what it'd be like having a sick kid. That sounds terrifying.
I heard, I haven't listened to Easy Allies in forever because I don't have time for gaming podcasts really anymore, but I heard the one guy left Easy Allies this past year. Had like a big following.
Yeah, Kyle Bossman. It sucks. I really loved him. He was like the host. I think he's doing work with Jeff Keighley now over at like Game Awards stuff.
He could do worse.
Yeah, he always comes on around the Game Awards. Says like it's always nice to hear him. I think that guy was like just such an incredible host.
Does Jeff Keighley bear a striking resemblance to Mark Zuckerberg to anybody else?
He's like if Mark Zuckerberg were a human. Yeah,
maybe a little bit. Yeah,
I
like
think
if he was born
aliens
on this planet.
Something about Jeff Keighley rubs me the wrong way, and it's not that he's a mean person or a bad guy.
Is it that he wears sunglasses like at all times? Is that what really bothers you? Because that bothers me.
You know that scene in Step Brothers where the guy's like, "I just want to rearrange your face," and he sounds really cool. He seems like a perfectly young gentleman. Actually, he's pretty old, isn't he? He's probably like 40.
He's probably in his 40s.
The last time, I know you were on before then, but one of my favorite podcasts with you was when you were listing all the people you could beat up in the games industry. How do you feel about Jeff Keighley?
I actually feel like Jeff Keighley would last longer than most, mainly because I believe he's not human.
Okay.
There's something weird about Jeff Keighley, and I don't know what it is, man. Every time I see him, I'm like, there's no way that he's real.
I just want to reiterate to people that is strictly Seth's opinion. I don't share that opinion, Austin.
Yeah,
I assume
Jeff Keighley. I think you're.
Oh no, I am alone on this ship, and I will sink it.
I just want our listeners and, more importantly, lawyers to know where we stand.
He seems nice. He seems like a good dude.
Okay.
There's just something about him. I see him, I'm like, get out of here, dude.
Gotcha.
You think he has like a shrink ray or like something like that? You think he has
I don't know.
Like
I don't know what it is.
Okay.
You know what I think it might be is that he hosts the Game Awards, and I really truly hate the Game Awards. I don't think that they're very good. I think that might actually be...
So that means he's an alien.
Yeah, it might be. I mean, I don't know. Him and Zuckerberg are both weird, especially Zuckerberg, dude. Like, there's some weird stuff about Zuckerberg that I'm like, I'm not that much of a conspiracy theorist to think like he's an alien, but he might not be like a human.
Let's unpack this for a second. As you said, you don't like the Game Awards. I agree. I think the Game Awards is a strange product now. Like, I actually thought it was like a better award show when it was on Spike.
I did too.
And like, I didn't think it was a particularly good award show on Spike, but I think it was a better award show just because now, like, it feels really disingenuous. Like, they just get people in because of like the trailers and the announcements. And I think that really takes a lot of like pride and like kick-assness of the industry away. Like, I wish they had like a separate event, Listen, I really respect what Jeff Keighley did because Spike cut the Game Awards and he's like, no, I'll just make my own, right? And I respect that. But I think the thing that made them better on Spike was that he had a cap. Like, okay, we're giving you 2 hours of airtime. Make the most of it. When I watched the Game Awards, and I actually completely skipped them this year, every time I watched them, I was like, this is just dragging on way too long. And there's too much that I don't care about.
This past year, too, it was the worst. And like, I don't know that I've missed a Game Awards, and I don't even know how long. But watching this past year, I mean, it was extraordinarily dragged out to me. If I'm remembering correctly, it was like 3.5 hours long, and by the end of it, I was just like, there was no reason for me to watch this.
Which is so weird because like, there's like not a lot else to do in December, like in terms of like video games. So like, it should be a thing that like I'm more excited about. Like, oh, there's like a 3-hour live stream that's just celebrating the best games of the year, giving people recognition and praise that they deserve, and then also announcing what I can look forward to in the next year, or in Star Wars Eclipse's case, in the next 6 years.
2028 game's coming out.
Yeah. And so like, it should be a bigger deal. It should be like a better deal, but like it's one of those things where it's like a Super Bowl with teams you don't care about, where you're like, well, I've got nothing else to do. Like, I'm going to watch this. I don't want to miss this cultural moment. But like, I'm not excited about this.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it seems extremely disingenuous as well, because I think there's a lot of advertisement that goes on with the Game Awards, and I also just don't think. Listen, like, video games don't have to be like the other industries in entertainment. Like, we don't need the award shows. No one watches the movies and TV award shows to begin with anymore, so that's not really a thing. And did like the Grammys do like the worst that they've ever done this year?
I don't watch the Grammys, like honestly, just because like I don't listen to stuff that gets nominated for Grammys. Like I listen to like really, I don't want to say bad music, but I guess like underrepresented at the Grammys music. But like I still give a crap about the Oscars. I still give a crap about the Emmys. I give less of a crap about the Golden Globes. But again, like I feel like the older I get, the more into sort of like productions I get, if that makes sense. Like it's one of those things where like I have gotten more excited for SNL in the past like 4 years than I did the 5 years before that. Like it makes me feel like a little younger, I guess. Like it makes me feel like a teenager again, like staying up for SNL. Right. Just the fact that it is like a live show and stuff. And so like that's like the one thing where I disagree. Like I agree that it doesn't need to be like the other industries, but I feel like by the way you do that is to make it better than the other industries. You know what I mean? Like they're following too much in like a cookie cutter mold. Cause like, yeah, the Oscars, they don't have like movie trailers. Like that's not like, it's not where right. You're going to see like, you know, the Phantom Menace trailer didn't premiere at the 1998 Oscars, the 99 Oscars. It premiered at like Meet Joe Black, which is like, you got people in to Meet Joe Black to watch that gosh darn trailer. And so I think they need to make a better product, but I'm okay with it. Like, proving that like everything that you celebrate about TV, everything you celebrate about music, about movies, we can do that too. Like there's just as much artistry here. So like I think that's important, but I think
more so I would say.
Yeah. Sure. Especially because like I mean, how many people make a game? You got 700 people working together to build like an entire fictional universe that like has to work in every circumstance. Like that's insane.
Everything is hand created in a video game. Everything, you know.
Well, I was going to say that the thing that bothered me this past year, and I think I had noticed it in years prior, but this past year, I feel like I noticed a lot more actors and like people unrelated to video games coming out and presenting the awards, which was very odd to me. Like you had Simu Liu, who's the guy that plays Shang-Chi in the Marvel films, and he comes out and he's like acting like he's playing a game on his phone or something, like mid-presentation, like I don't know if he was trying to portray that he's like into games or something, but it was just very awkward. And I don't know. I feel like I'd find those segments a little more entertaining if it was like, hey, here's Neil Druckmann presenting the award, or Amy Hennig, or whoever it may be. Not these random people who have actually kind of nothing to do with video games in the first place.
From my understanding, almost like in the industry and like the development space, people don't really care that much about like the TGAs. What they really care about is like the DICE awards.
Yeah,
because that is a more specific award dedicated to the art and craftsmanship. And I don't know, man. The TGAs, the Game Awards, they just seem a little weird. It feels like we're in this weird.
It's like the Kids' Choice Awards, right?
Yeah. The thing is like we're in a different age now as far as like award shows and stuff go, because I don't need to watch this thing premiere live, because I know personally that 30 seconds, maybe even before it airs live, it's going to be up on YouTube for me to watch, right? So I can actually completely skip the whole show, look at the highlights, and be like, oh, okay, a new Star Wars trailer came up. Let me go to YouTube and watch that. Save myself 3 hours and not have to, and I can do something else in that time. Right?
It's also,
I don't know.
Yeah, and it's also weird too, because like I remember being in 7th grade, and like when I was in middle school, and like probably through like the first couple years of high school, I actually really gave a crap about like the MTV Movie Awards. Like I thought that stuff was super fun. They'd always get like a fun host. They do like a really good parody of things. Like I think when I was in 7th grade, that was when The Mummy Returns came out. So it was like Jimmy Fallon and Kirsten Dunst, I think, were like the two main actors that were like hosting the the movie awards, and they did like a really funny like Mummy Returns sketch where like Rob Schneider played Imhotep, and Snoop Dogg played like the blimp driver, and like that really stuck with me. Like Will Ferrell played the architect from The Matrix 2 in like one of the MTV Movie Awards, and like I just remember thinking like, oh, here's like a prestigious body presenting like some kind of authority, I guess, on like what was culturally cool, what was culturally important. And I remember like really taking that stuff to heart. But like all due respect to like the TGAs, that means more than our show. But like we have a Game of the Year podcast too. Like it's one of those things where I think the way social media has like democratized a lot of voices, like there's just so many different opinions out there that just like weren't readily available in 2002, 2003, so it's one of those things too where it's like, should we watch the Game Awards or should we just watch a playlist of all the games announced and then just like create our own content based on the playlist of trailers, and then like the list of winners?
Yeah, I think it would mean more coming from a different voice too, like maybe what's the company that runs the ratings and E3?
ESRB, baby.
That's not the name of them, is it?
Entertainment Software Ratings Board.
I can't remember. I thought there was like a governing body, and it's the same people that leaked all the journalists' infos a couple of years ago, which was insane, and nothing ever came of that.
I thought the ESRB came out so that there wouldn't be like a government interference.
Yes, but I'm pretty sure this company runs it as well, like above them.
Entertainment Software Association? The ESA, yeah, that's it for sure.
Yes, that is it. Yes, that's what I'm thinking of. I think an award show coming from the ESA would be a little more relevant to me because E3 also always just felt like more of a celebration of gaming anyway. That seemed like our event of the year where like it lasted a couple days. We got our trailers, our news, all our hype, and we had a great time. That's kind of gone, but I don't know. From what I hear, they're trying to get E3 to return, so I don't think it's ever going to return.
No.
I don't think it really should return, to be honest. Not like I think this past year was honestly like rougher than the year before in terms of solutions, I guess, just to like the current climate. Just because you don't want hundreds of people in one area with air, like poor air circulation. I get that, but I think like last year, 2020 did a better job than 2021, if that makes sense. It's too all over the place this past year for me.
Let's talk about movies. Did either of you guys watch the Uncharted movie?
No,
I haven't seen it yet, but you saw it.
I did see it. I thought it was.
What did you think?
Pleasantly all right. Like I went with my dad. I almost died, by the way. You guys almost had a cripple on the show because there's still ice here, and Dad has a giant lifted truck, and I stepped out of the door and immediately slipped on a patch of ice, and my legs went parallel with the ground, and I landed, and there was a car coming, and I had just enough time to pull my legs and roll over, and the car went past. I'm like, oh my god,
Jesus!
So I almost was a cripple because I would have ran right over my kneecaps. But the Uncharted movie, without spoiling it, was like fine. But the whole time I'm watching it, I was like, we already have a better version of this, though. And this is kind of where I was trying to round it out to, which is like, we don't need to be like the other industries because we already have the best version of this. Uncharted is already an extremely cinematic game. And, like, I'm sorry, the Nathan Drake that we got in the video games is better than Tom Holland's Nathan Drake. They did probably the best adaptation they possibly could, except for like the last really odd 20 minutes where they just went way too big with it.
And also Mark Wahlberg, let's not give him too much credit.
Wahlberg's okay. It's not the solid. I
just like I hate him as a human being. I hate everything about him as a human being. Yeah.
You don't like Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch?
I don't know.
It's really weird to me though.
You don't like Wahlburgers, George?
I don't. I generally don't like people who commit hate crimes in general. That's my my philosophy. Yeah.
Good burgers though. Do
they have good burgers? You ever been there?
I don't know. I've never been. There's actually one in Atlanta, but I've never been.
I'm sure they're not that good.
I mean, it seems like a pretty typical burger joint. But what I will say is that I thought it was going to be terrible, and it's fine. If it comes out and you want to rent it or buy the Blu-ray, I think that's a reasonable purchase. What I really wanted to talk about was the Batman. I wanted to hear what you guys thought about the Batman.
Austin, go for it.
It's the best Batman film ever released for me. I mean, nothing tops it. I don't know.
I'm gonna say something here. If someone says like their favorite Batman movie is The Batman or Batman Returns or The Dark Knight, and if you come back to say, really, my favorite's Mask of the Phantasm, like, go screw yourself, man. Like, no, it's not the same. It's really not the same.
Better animated movie anyway. So,
what's that?
I said Under the Red Hood was the better animated movie anyway.
What's really funny about that is everyone hated that comic, but that movie is like the most beloved DC animated movie, and it's like beat for beat the same exact thing. So like, I don't understand what happened.
That movie is fantastic.
But yeah, just like, obviously Mask of the Phantasm is great, but like, we're talking live action. Like, don't be that D-hole who brings up Mask of the Phantasm. I thought it was awesome. Still not my favorite, but like, it's probably... I can't even say like the best made Batman movie, because like, I really do think Chris Nolan's like a genius and like unparalleled in terms of like scope and the way he films things. Yeah. But I think it's easily like the prettiest Batman movie I've ever seen. Like, when was the last time you saw someone like really care about like framing and like shot construction? There's one scene, this isn't a spoiler because I'm not going to do any story beats, but there's one scene where like Batman's fighting in a tunnel that's completely dark and is only lit by like the flashes of gunfire. And it's like one of the coolest things I've seen in a movie in the past couple years. And like that level of like, I think Chris Nolan is like technically more impressive. And I think I really, really prefer that. But like, man, this is like a gorgeous movie. And it had a lot of like Tim Burton-esque nods in like the art direction, which I really appreciate. Like, it felt like a neo-Gothic noir Gotham, which I was like so stoked to see. Like, it had personality, which is like my biggest thing about Marvel movies, completely lacking it.
Yeah, that's the thing with this movie. I mean, honestly, that's why it really stood out for me, is aside from, I mean, truthfully, I was not expecting Robert Pattinson to like just nail the character, and to me, he did. I thought he was flawless. I thought he was phenomenal.
Yeah.
But the way Gotham is portrayed, to me, felt much more lively and like much more comic-esque than like the Chris Nolan universe did. Like, to me, that just felt like Chicago. Yeah. This feels a little different. This feels like a little more intense. And
well, they literally had a scene in the third movie at the Pittsburgh Stadium, right?
Yeah,
like that was Heinz Field they blew up.
Yeah. So that's part of the reason I love this movie, but also, like you said, George, the cinematography, the sound design, is nuts. Like, the first time, I'm not going to say anything, but the first time you see the Batmobile, like, bonkers, absolutely, just insane way that they build up to that.
I actually didn't care for
because the sound.
I didn't care for the Batmobile that much. They do one thing that I think is really interesting. It's like one of my favorite things about Batman is like, Batman the Animated Series in particular, like, that feels like it's taking place in the 90s, and it feels like it's taking place in the 60s, and it feels like it's taking place in the 40s all at the same time. Like, you know, when you go on the Bat computer, it can do things that like don't make sense, but it looks like something from the 40s. Like, it's not quite steampunk. I'm not really sure what the term is, but it's like something punk. And there's some tech you see that like he uses for like, he actually does like real detective work in this. He doesn't just like cut out a brick and then shoot other bricks with a bullet. No offense, Dark Knight. But he does like real detective work, and the technology he uses looks like an amalgam of tech from the 40s, like and the 90s, and also like 2022. Like, it's really like they just put so much thought, I guess, into like making it look good. And like, I understand like, oh, it just looks like Chicago for like The Dark Knight Rises. I mean, that was the point of those movies, was to like portray like what if a superhero really existed? How would that look?
Right.
And so I'm not going to like bash those movies for that.
Yeah.
I'll think of something else to bash those movies for, but like, that's not going to be like a point against it. That said, I think my favorite Batman movie is still Returns, with like Chris Walken and Michelle Pfeiffer, Danny DeVito. I just love that movie because Tim Burton is like such a nut bar. And he made like a real Gotham that you could like walk through. But this is like the second closest to that. And in fact, there was even some like musical nods to Batman Returns, which it made me just want to go back and watch that movie. But this movie is excellent. I cannot recommend it enough. I think I'm seeing it again this week, and I'm taking my dad this time. I'm very excited.
So I actually think I'm probably just not going to see it because everyone's talking so high on it, and I just don't want to. And I know that coming in with that kind of energy, it's just going to ruin the whole movie for me.
Sure.
I'm just going to come in with like a pissy attitude. I'm just going to be like, nah, I don't want to be here. It's
Right.
just my thing, you know.
I mean, the one thing I will say, and we had talked about this prior, but sitting in a movie theater for 3 hours, I mean, to me, that was still kind of a struggle. Like by hour 2, I was like, oh, I really need to use the restroom, and I kind of just like sat there for the rest of the movie because I didn't want to miss anything. And so, no, I mean, honestly, it'll be on HBO Max in 45 days, and so
really?
at that point, yeah.
I
would just watch it.
I disagree. I didn't want to see it because it was so long. Like that was like, I don't want to be at the theater for that long. I got dogs. I got to get back to my dogs. You know, like just like stuff like that. I thought that movie flew by. Like there is a lot of stories you could cut to make like a tighter flick, but I think this was like a really enjoyable movie, and I didn't think like I thought like I was gonna get tired. You know, like just my ass in like really uncomfortable old like historically preserved seats at like my local theater.
Mm-hmm.
I like thought I was gonna get like a cramp, you know, just from sitting on dusty old pieces of velvet or whatever. I thought it flew by. I thought it was like a super breezy pace. I really liked it. The Dark Knight still feels longer, even though it's probably 10 minutes shorter.
I don't disagree. I mean, as far as the film itself, it's just for me still the act of sitting in a movie theater for 3 hours and like physically preparing yourself for that. But no, the movie itself, I don't disagree at all. I think the runtime was actually great for what they were portraying and the stories they were telling.
Yeah, I saw it coming out, the reviews and whatnot, and I'm sure this movie is fantastic. I just want to experience it in the most enjoyable way possible for me. Yeah, unbiased. And I know, like, especially with me being so down on superheroes right now and so over superhero movies, and just being able to kind of ignore it for a while. I think the only superhero movie I've watched in the last year or two was Spider-Man. So that's just kind of been nice. I've been taking a break, and I think once it comes out and I can watch it at home, I'm not forcing myself to go to a situation where I'm already not wanting to go to. Is just
not as easy going as short box summary, right? I mean, you can just plug those into your ears. You just listen to two cynical boys talk about cynical comics. Yeah,
that's right. But which, by the way, thanks for the comic recommendations.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Having a blast. Got me right back into reading comics.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I think the danger about that show is, I feel like a lot of people will say that like the best comics are their favorite comics. You know, it's like, oh, the best era of Spider-Man was when I was 14. Like everything else Spider-Man sucks. I'm like, well, that might be true. Like that could very well be true. Statistically, it probably isn't. You know, like it's the same thing. Like I think with SNL, we're like, oh, the best cast was when I was 12 years old. It's like, well, actually, like the past couple years have been pretty good, and like the cringe stuff gets shared, and it's like you only see like the worst sketches, but like like the good stuff's still pretty good. I'm trying to go back and be unbiased. And it's been actually really easy dunking on stuff that I thought was so cool at the time. So like that's been like really therapeutic, just to like go back and like revisit all my favorite stuff and just like figure out like, was it good or was I 14? And it turns out a lot of the time, like it was pretty good, but also I was 14 and I need to stop like saying like, oh, this is one of the most iconic Spider-Man stories of all time. It's like, yeah, it was strictly fine. Like George, pump the brakes, guy.
Yeah, it was actually really interesting because I had wanted to read some more Scarlet Witch stuff, and you had recommended me those Scarlet Witch books, and it just happened to be that your show had covered, what's that series called? That
Avengers Disassembled.
Yes, Avengers Disassembled. Wonderful story, and then the Young Avengers, and then I still haven't read the 15 issue Scarlet Witch series that you recommended, but
pretty good. It is pretty good. I got to get Austin and Elijah back on. If you want to join for that second half of Young Avengers comics, like issues 7 through 12 in the special, I'd love to have you on.
Oh, you guys are reviewing them?
Yeah, we did like I did like a summary walkthrough of the first 6 issues, and I got to do the next.
Just let me know. I'll come.
Yeah, cool.
I just read them, so
sweet.
Nice.
All right. So sorry about that, but like I guess it's I brought that up because like the movie I think I've seen the most in my entire life is Batman Begins, which is a movie that came out when I was 14 years old, you know? So it was like one of the first DVDs I can like remember buying in high school, and I just like fell asleep to it every single night. And I would just try to make it to like the 40-minute mark because that's like when Bruce goes back to Gotham, and I just like love that sequence so much. And so I really think like I'm sorry to say more praise about this movie because I want you to see it, and I'm afraid just like I'm hyping it up before like you'll get a chance to see it. But like, man, I can totally see myself falling asleep to this movie, which is something I don't normally do anymore. Like normally I throw on Seinfeld and just pass out to that, but like I might actually start falling asleep to movies again because this just like brought me the same type of feelings when I was like 14, but it was like relative to like me being 31 now. Like it was really good just to see something so new and so like refreshing and pretty. And I guess that's it. That's all I gotta say about the Batman.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to watch it. I guess when it comes out on HBO Max in 45 days. Not really sure.
Yes.
I really thought movie theaters were going to die with COVID. I mean, I was sure it was over, like donezo for them, but they seem to have somehow struggled through.
I thought we were going to get more options. Like I thought it was going to be one of those things where like they'd have to like dial up the amenities and like not like the way NFTs are being offered, like not NFTs at movies, but like some kind of like bonus, for like going to a theater. I thought there'd be fewer theaters. I thought there'd be like more independent theaters just for people who are like, oh man, everything sucks. I want to like go back in time. It's like I want to go see, I don't know, like the Goonies or something, like at a theater. And I thought there was going to be like more like, available day and date digitally.
Yeah.
Which like I'd be all for. Just like I love going to the theater, but it's just like such a pain in the ass where I live to go to the theater. So God, it would be so cool. I would have rather just like rented the Batman from home the day it came out. But yeah, what can you do?
All right. Well, I guess we should start talking about some video games, huh? This is a video game podcast.
Is it?
No,
Is it?
Screw it. We talk about video games every week. Like,
every
we
week.
deserve a break.
But have you guys been playing anything interesting this week? Austin, George, anybody?
I have. I
right.
picked up Gran Turismo 7 because that came out last week. All right, I will, and you'll like it.
What how do you think? How do you feel?
It's fantastic. I really like the game. I didn't pick up GT Sport on PS4 because that game was so like I guess it was supposed to be like competitive multiplayer focused, and that just wasn't really what I wanted out of Gran Turismo. Like when I think of Gran Turismo, I always think about the license tests and like the car collecting and all that stuff, and just competitive online only was not really what I was looking for. So I passed on that game, but I really, really adored Gran Turismo 5 and 6 on PS3. I played so much of those games. And for me, this game really brings it back to that. I'm not super far in. I've probably played about 5 or 6 hours, but graphically, I'm playing on PS5. It is on PS4 as well. Graphically, it's just gorgeous. The way the cars are designed and like looking around the interior of the cars and like seeing, no joke, like seeing the threads on the seats and seeing the ray traced like reflections on like the interior screens and whatever it may be on the vehicle. I mean, it's just incredible the way that it's everything's designed. But the thing that sticks out to me the most is like, coming off of Forza Horizon 5 last fall, which is pretty arcadey, it's still got your mainstream cars in it, but it's a pretty goofy game. This game to me feels more like you're like walking into a museum. Like you've stepped into like an automotive museum, and which I really actually like that idea. You have this whole cafe section, and it has missions for different races and what have you. And when you collect 2 or 3 cars, you come back, and it actually like teaches you about the cars. It'll explain like, I mean, I'm like a relatively like average car guy. Like I know a decent amount, but not like a ton. But this is like in the 5 hours of me playing, I've already learned a lot about cars, which is interesting. Like I've never really seen a game take this approach. Like this morning I was doing something, I forget what it was, but it was talking about like rear wheel drive, like Japanese cars from like the 80s. And it was teaching you kind of like the balance of like the motor and how the rear wheel like affects the drive. And it was just interesting. to see a game that way. And certainly it's not for everybody, but as somebody who's mildly interested in cars, it's gotten me hooked. It's like I'm totally hooked on it. And yeah, it's fantastic from what I've played.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Anything else you play this week, or?
Honestly, no, that's really it. So
Yeah, I feel like there was no window at all between like the announcement of Gran Turismo 7 and the release. I feel like all of a sudden everyone was just like, "Oh, Gran Turismo 7 releases this week." Like, oh, okay.
yeah.
I thought it was going to come out last year because that was like one of the first big games that they hyped at like the PS5 like game reveal. So I was a little disappointed that it wasn't a launch game because I thought the only like Gran Turismo game I ever got into was like the PSP one, and so I thought this was going to be like my best chance to get into a Gran Turismo game was at launch. But I grabbed this one. I'm really excited to check it out. I couldn't play it because I got boned by my PlayStation this weekend. Not as bad as Elijah, who unfortunately like pour one out for Elijah's PS5. He has to send that in for repairs. I got an external hard drive delivered to my house on Friday. I also got Gran Turismo 7 delivered to my house on Friday. I was really excited. I'm like, oh, I'm going to transfer the contents from my hard drive to my new, from my old hard drive to my new hard drive. I'm going to install Gran Turismo. I'm going to let this run while I go see the Batman. By the time I come back, I'll be racing in Germany in no time. Not the case. So you have a USB drive in the back of your PlayStation 5. You have a USB-C drive in the front of your PlayStation 5, and you have a second USB-B type in your PlayStation 5 in the front. You can only use the back drive, the back like USB port for external hard drive, right? Like that. Okay, that sucks. I thought I'd be able to just plug in a second hard drive and just transfer the contents of one hard drive to another. Not the case. So what I had to do was fill my PlayStation hard drive with content from my external hard drive, unplug it, plug in my new external hard drive, empty my hard drive on my console onto my new external, disconnect that, connect in my old hard drive, and do the same process. You cannot do anything else on your PlayStation while you are transferring contents. So I just sat at a screen that gave me no information. I was trying to transfer 19 PlayStation 4 games, just like little games that I wanted to check out, little like indie games that I thought would be faster to do this than it would be to transfer. Not the case. So like it doesn't tell you progress. It shows you like a little bar and it's just like transferred 0 games of 21. And then all of a sudden you finish a game, then it says 1. It doesn't give you a percentage. It doesn't give you a time. It just gives you a bar that slowly fills. This was one of the most like excruciating processes I've ever had to deal with for a PlayStation. I think it was like the most ass backwards way they could have done it. I don't understand why like you develop this brand new next gen console and then skimp out on one of the USB drives, especially knowing that like you kind of shorthanded people with the internal hard drive of the SSD that can only play PlayStation 5 games. So I'm a little frustrated with PlayStation this weekend because that literally took me all night Friday, all day Saturday, and all day Sunday to transfer 1.7 terabytes. Because there's a bug that happens where you can actually transfer some PlayStation 4 games between your internal hard drive system to your external hard drive system. But you don't know that until it doesn't complete. Like you don't know that until you get to 99.9%. So I had like a 95 gigabyte Vermintide 2 game file that I was so excited to transfer from my PlayStation to my hard drive. It doesn't tell me what games couldn't transfer. So I spend, probably 25 minutes waiting for that one specifically to transfer, and then it doesn't. So the only way I can get it off my PlayStation internal hard drive, which is, backed up and like reserved for PlayStation 5 games, is to delete it and then start a new 95 gigabyte download directly to my new external hard drive.
That's awful, man.
Yeah. And like grand scheme of things, it's barely a problem at all, right? Like I don't mean to like make a mountain out of a molehill. I'm just saying as far as like UX goes, like this was a huge oversight. And I really hope a fix comes in soon. Like,
yeah, I mean, the thing is with Sony is like they have such a great community and great library but they always miss the little things, right? Like they always miss the mark on like the small stuff that means the world. Like for instance, being able to change your PSN name, stuff like that.
Chat,
yeah. They miss the mark on the little stuff, but they have such a the big things are so great, but it's all that little stuff that gets in the way of Sony. Drives me nuts about them. But I'm sorry to
Yeah.
hear about that, buddy. So did you not get to play Gran Turismo at all?
No, I finally got to install it today. I was like up until like 1 a.m. last night, like transferring the hard drive stuff. I just gave up on Vermintide. I'm just going to delete that one and then like set download location to the external hard drive. But I finally finished installing it. I was going to play that either tonight or tomorrow. I'm really excited to check it out, but like it was just like not a great start to playing the game.
Yeah.
That said, it looks gorgeous. I can't wait to like really dive into it.
Yeah.
The one game I did play a lot of though, I feel like I've been dunking a lot on Pokemon Shining Diamond because I really dislike the art style. I find it like really peculiar that they decide to be like honest. No, not honest. That's not the right word. What's the word? Authentic, I guess, is like the right word, where they have like the chibi overworld art style. I just don't really care for that look. Like I think the DS does like a lot of things right, but like I'm personally not super nostalgic for like the DS like graphic set. So I just wish it like the character models looked the way they did like in the battle screen, like kind of like how they did in Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee. That's it. I spent more time in that game because I couldn't play my PlayStation because it was transferring stuff. So I was just like going back and forth. I played a bunch of demos. I think we'll talk about that later. But holy crap, I'm having a blast now with Shining Diamond. I'm having a really, really good time. I'm like just like noticing so much more and like picking out what I like and dislike about Pokemon games. And I'm trying to play that in Arceus contemporaneously, so I can like be like, okay, this is what this game does better. This is what that game does better. Here's what I hope to see in future titles. And like it's just little things. Like man, there's just so much like fluff in the game. And I like went into the settings and I finally like explored what I could do in the settings. And what a game changer! Like just turning off battle animations. I miss them, but also it just like speeds up battles so much more. And like you just look at like little game world stuff where it's like you have like you're fighting against someone who has like a Cleffa or a Clefairy, and like they have no offensive moves. Like literally all they can do is like put you to sleep or make you fall in love with them so you can't attack them. Like it's like a total like pillow fort strategy, right? Where they're just like trying to make themselves safe. And I'm just like, oh, this is so annoying because like they know they can't beat you. They're just trying to make it like more of a pain in the ass for like the next person you fight. So like just like taking like little notes about that and like comparing that to like what happens in Arceus. Whereas like in this game, I got to go through like the Viridian City equivalent, like the Eterna Forest, right? Or sorry, Viridian Forest equivalent, the Eterna Forest. Like I got to go through that with someone, which is like one of my biggest complaints in Arceus is like I just think that game's like kind of lonely, you know. And so it's just like figuring out all these different philosophies, trying to pinpoint because like I got really excited for Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet, I think is the other one, right?
Yeah, I am too, by the way.
And so I'm just like trying to figure out like, okay, like what do I really like about this series? Like what do I think stands out? And so I've just been exploring that and just trying to like learn about myself this weekend while my PlayStation 5 games did or did not transfer to my new external hard drive. And it was a lot of fun. It was great. I still don't like the art style, but that game is still a blast. Platinum might be my favorite Pokemon game, if not for Soul Silver and Heart Gold.
Those are my two as
torn
well.
on those two. Yeah.
Well, just to piggyback off that, there's 3 games I want to talk about, and the first one I'll just talk about is Arceus. So, Caitlin got it for me for Valentine's Day, and I've been playing.
Aww.
I've been playing it a lot, and I gotta say, man, it's a lot more fun than I thought it was gonna be. I like the changes they made the battle system, especially coming from like I agree with you, George. Like sometimes Pokemon battles just take way too long. In Arceus, they're over in 1 or 2 moves, almost always, and it's just a really quick. You know, who's got the type advantage? Bam, you're done. Even if you're like sometimes 10, 15 levels above the other Pokemon, if you don't have a type advantage, you won't one-shot them, and then they can one-shot you. It's crazy. So it's definitely not the classic Pokemon combat system. The open world is, like you said, George, really dry, I would say, and lonely. It's just kind of quiet, and there's not a whole lot going on. There's not a lot to discover other than Pokemon who are just randomly just standing around. But it is a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun with Arceus, and I don't really know what it is about it. I think it's just collecting the Pokemon, man. It's that classic formula that's really driving me forward and, evolving them and leveling them up and learning new moves. I love some of the changes they made, especially being able to just swap the Pokemon moves out on the fly. I think that is a great system. A great addition to the series.
Yeah.
But one thing I'll say, and I will beat this drum forever, this is the highest grossing franchise in history, and there's no reason it should look like this. No reason at all. I mean, dude, when you go into a cave, there is a glitchy white border around your character that stands out. And it's like common across almost everyone's games. And it's like, how did this go through? You guys have an unlimited wallet. You can get whatever developers you want in here. And it's the same thing I've been saying for years. I just don't think Game Freak has the chops, man. They made the same game for 20 years, and I just don't think they have it in them to switch on a dime like this and expand and just make these beautiful giant worlds that are par for the course these days. I'm sorry, Pokemon Arceus is an ugly game. It really is. It's fun because it's that classic Pokemon formula, but it does not look good. And in my opinion, as customers, we're paying full price for these games. We should expect more. And, Scarlet and Violet, they look better, but even in that trailer, you can see the windmills off in the distance. Like, they look like PS2 games, man. And that's not even an exaggeration. They look terrible. That being said, there's a lot to like about Arceus. I think it's a very fun game. I like what they did with the battle systems, not transferring screens and stuff, and I love the catching mechanics. But you can't get around how terrible it looks, especially when there's games like The Witcher on there.
Do you do you have like a favorite live version of a song?
No, I used to listen to some more live music from like Linkin Park, especially, but I'm not really a live musical listener.
Because the way I've been thinking about Arceus and like traditional Pokemon games is like it's like a really good live version of a song. Like I think my favorite live version of a song is probably like Anna Begins by Counting Crows. And I love like the studio version of that song. But like I go back and forth because like sometimes I'm really in the mood for the live version because it's like a little longer. They take some different pauses, like it's a little different. And then other times I really just want to listen to like the thing that like helped me get through 7th grade,
Yeah.
And so like that's kind of how I feel about Arceus and like a traditional game where like they feel so similar, but there's just like little like bumps and creases where like it is different. I totally agree that it's like an ugly game, and like the thing is like it's ugly, but like that's not impeding my enjoyment of it,
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it should be brought up. But my one question is, do you think Nintendo hardware is holding Game Freak back, or do you think Game Freak just isn't capable of like stepping too far out of their comfort zone?
I think the answer to that is clear and cut, and possibly even factual. It's Game Freak. Breath of the Wild exists on that console and doesn't look nearly that bad.
Yeah. Well, and that was a launch game too.
Right.
I mean, over time, the developers should understand a little bit better how to use that hardware. And no, I agree with you 100%. I would say it's Game Freak.
And then,
it's odd. You've got the Let's Go series, and those games are beautiful. I know it's a different scale. I know it's certainly not like as open world, but still.
Well, that and we've harped on this before in this podcast. Austin, I don't think you actually were around, but like they used to push the boundaries of the hardware, right?
Yes.
Like it's like unreal that Pokemon Yellow happened on the same device that like I don't know, Super Mario Land, like the original one came out on, like that's insane. And
Yeah,
then, like
dude.
same thing with the advanced games. Like it's just like unreal what they were able to squeeze out of what they were on. And like now it's like they're afraid of like going in the red, like on like your RPM gauge, like on a car, to bring it back to Gran Turismo 7.
Real quick, if no one has looked into how Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow operate, it is a great like 20-minute rabbit hole to go down, because the way they were able to pull off things and the precise corners they were able to cut in order to make them fit on the Game Boy is like incredible. Like the things they were able to do to make those games work is like insane, and that's why they're so glitchy and why you can speedrun in like 30 seconds. But it is like a really, really fascinating moment in game development history of how they got Red, Blue, and Yellow to work on the Game Boy. But I just think, man, you're right, George. It's not affecting my enjoyment of the game. But it does stand out sometimes, especially, like I said, when you go into a cave and there's a white border around your character that's clearly not developed there. It's a border because the character animation is clipping through the colors. And I'm like, man, the highest grossing franchise in history. And this is like what they come up with? I don't know, man. I have a hard time wrapping my mind around it. And now they're pumping out these games so fast. When I saw that Gen 9 got announced and it's coming out this year, I was like, "Oh my god."
Okay,
What?
you clearly didn't listen to last week's episode because we
I
talked
didn't,
about
but
that.
I saw the description and the title of it, and I was like, I saw it and I was like, this is crazy. It's almost too much. But I'm hoping that because it's sort of a mainline Pokemon game, as opposed to what Arceus is, that I'll be able to consume it and not feel burnout from Pokemon.
That
I don't
was
know.
Yeah.
that was what we
Yeah.
talked about on the show. I think I
Yeah.
actually convinced Austin of my argument where like back in the day
You
you'd
did.
get like a mainstream Pokemon game but like only on handheld, and then you get like the weird experiments on
Yeah.
console. And you really lose that sense of like pacing and delineation by having a console that's both, right?
Yeah.
Like before it only used to exist, you could only get traditional games on Game Boy Advance, on DS, on Game Boy Color, whatever. And you could get like weird one-offs on GameCube, like XD Gale of Darkness. Like this game
Great game.
is, yeah, it is. It is, but it's like very much not like a traditional Pokemon game. And like I think that this is like spiritually the new XD Gale of Darkness, right? Like with more in common than like a traditional game. But like the same thing with like Pokemon Snap, where like it feels like we're getting all this stuff. It's like no, that used to just be a game for home consoles, like for the people who didn't have a Game Boy but like still wanted to
Right.
play in this world. And I just think that gets so confused now in a world where your handheld is your home console, you know?
Just real quick, one last thing about Pokemon, and I'll move on to the other games I've been playing. The story's terrible in Arceus, and I've gotten to a point where I'm just skipping through the whole thing. As soon as a dialogue box pop up, I'm just smashing it because I don't care anymore. There's been too much complete, absolute useless nonsense that's been fed to me in that story. So the
You
other
want a good
game
story? You want a good story? You should play some shiny dies.
so Gen 4 is ironically the only generation of Pokemon I've never touched.
Oh, really? Austin,
Yep.
back
Oh
me up.
man,
How
Yep.
good is
Ooh.
Gen 4?
I love Gen 4. I mean, I think it's story wise, I think it has some of the best stuff for sure.
See, because I've heard Black and White's the best as far as story goes.
Black and White does have very good story too. Yeah, I would agree
I
with
think
you
that's my
there.
number 3. Yeah, like I think
Yeah.
it's like Platinum and Silver 1A, 1B. And again, like I really think I just like Silver because of the twist. Like you think the game's over, and then all of a sudden you go back to
That's a great
uh,
point in the game.
whatever Kanto.
Yeah.
But then like a Platinum, I just like love. Like Platinum was like a desert island game where like I went to move to England for my year abroad. I brought my DS, and I only had like 5 games on DS. I ended up buying a lot more in England, and I hate it because they're all like the dumb Europe cases that just like don't fit in on my shelf.
Mhm.
But it's nice to have the memories of like weird Star Fox games I bought on DS at like pawn shops in the UK. That's nice. But man, Platinum, I poured like hundreds of hours into that game.
Wow.
And I think it really holds up.
That of all the Pokemon games, I think that's the one I've played the most of. I think Heart
That was
Gold
your
was
First
second,
one,
but
right?
yeah, that was the first Pokemon game I actually really got into.
God,
I
how old were you?
was like 12 or 13. I didn't play Pokemon growing up,
I was
actually,
a
which was kind of
freshman in
surprising.
college. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got my DS because like a buddy was like only getting X amount of dollars from GameStop for like a buyback because this is when the DSi was coming out.
Mhm.
And so he's just like, yeah, I'm getting this amount of dollars. And like, it cost me $40 more to buy a DS from GameStop than he was getting. I was like, all right, so how about instead of you getting 90 towards your DSi, I give you 100 and like I save money and you get more money. And then you can put that towards it. And we'll both buy Platinum. We'll go back to our dorms. We'll do that pain in the ass thing where we trade each other all the starters. and then we'll get on with the game. And that was like a great night. That was like a February, I think, January in like 2009, I think, like right around the Super Bowl. That was like when I remember the DSi coming out and getting that. Yeah, great times in gaming history for this guy.
Yeah. The other games I've been playing, Monster Hunter Rise on PC. It was funny because I was just talking about the game with my buddy at work, and I was like, I think it's coming out on PC soon. Only lo and behold, to look it up, and it had already come out on PC. I was like, oh sweet, I'm gonna buy that tonight because what I was really looking for was just a gameplay-driven experience where I could just jump in, play some of the game, and not have to worry about like a ton of plot and stuff. And Monster Hunter just hit that perfect spot with that completely. And I mean, I love Monster Hunter Rise, and I've been having a blast with it. I've almost completed the entire like vanilla experience. I have a few more monsters to go, but I've been kind of just grinding and completing armor sets and stuff like that. So the new expansion's coming out in the summer, so that's pretty exciting.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's so disappointing to me that they didn't make any effort to make that game crossplay.
it's so weird, especially because people have hundreds of hours into that game.
Yeah. Well, and
Is it?
Capcom was like, "Yeah, we don't know if it's possible," but it's like, dude, you're literally the one that made Street Fighter 5, which was
Yeah.
crossplay between PS4 and PC. So
Is it a
what's going on
competitive
there?
game? Like is it like you know how like Halo has like crossplay between PC and console and it sucks
No.
because like the PC players are really good. So it's all cooperative, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no
Then
PvP.
okay, then there's no reason it shouldn't be
No,
crossplay.
it's really
unless this is like Nintendo's not holding Game Freak back, but Nintendo's definitely holding Capcom back.
yeah, probably. I would imagine that's more the case. Also, it could just be because Monster Hunter's online system seems to work on like 90s dial-up lines because it is the worst lobby system I've ever seen in a video game. It's
rough.
It's been 10 years and I still hear complaints about Capcom's like netcode.
Yeah.
Like for Street Fighter and stuff. Quick question. I think we're either getting into like our quick end topic or we're just going to end. I'm happy either way. I've had a great time with you guys tonight. But the way the traditional Pokemon games are like baby's first JRPG, I've never really messed around with a Monster Hunter. I've got like maybe an hour and a half under my belt with Monster Hunter Tri on Wii.
Mhm.
But I was drunk for most of 2011, so I don't actually remember it. Is Arceus, is that like baby's first Monster Hunter? Like are there more similarities between that and Monster Hunter than I'm aware of?
Not really. I wouldn't
No?
say any similarities at all.
Well, I guess just like going out and like trying to capture these things, like it feels more, I guess like quest based than like in the traditional games. It feels like you're doing like a stamp collection, but like the fact that it feels like such an ordeal to do it in Arceus, like I wasn't sure if that felt like going after
The gameplay
monsters in
experience
Monster Hunter.
isn't really the same. I would say Monster Hunter is more like baby's first Dark Souls.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
like,
Monster Hunter and Dark Souls are very similar. I would agree with that.
yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. Okay, I
Not nearly.
I
as
have
punishing,
no
but-
experience really in Soulsborne or Monster Hunter games, so that's really interesting to hear.
Yeah, it's not nearly as punishing, and there's definitely ways to make the games in Monster Hunter easier. But like the thing with Dark Souls that drives me nuts is just how unforgiving and unfair they are, and that's coincidentally the third game I played is Elden Ring, and it's fine, it's good, it's addicting, just like the other Souls games are. But the thing is that I'm not really understanding why it's got so much like praise and hype, because it's not that much better than the other Souls games. It's like slightly marginally better, I think. I'm having fun playing it, but I'm like, okay.
What's your temperature on Breath of the Wild? I can't remember. Sorry,
Terrible.
I've barely seen your face in the past year. You think it's terrible? I don't think it's terrible. I just think it's like, okay, like I had more fun with Skyrim, and like obviously this is like we've had that discussion. We've had this discussion where you're like, is the best game from 2016 better than the best game from 1998 because it's like newer and there's more bells and whistles? I think that's a fascinating discussion. By the way, I'd love to revisit that in 2022.
Yeah.
But like, yeah. Like I see everyone praising it and like they're just loving all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but there was like diegetic quests that happen in other games. Like there was like natural stuff you'd happen upon that like contextually didn't make sense. And like I really think I'm sure it's a fantastic game. I'm not like I don't have the vocabulary to like really gel with it. I've played a little bit of it. I need to revisit it. Like I shared that story earlier about the PlayStation hard drive. That was such a nightmare. So I didn't really get to game this weekend, unfortunately. But I think it's one of those things where like people are really getting into hyperbole, and like I don't mean to yuck anyone's yum, but like I feel like a lot of people who think that like the best game they're playing right now is the best game they've ever played.
Yeah.
Does that like ring true to you guys? Like,
Yeah.
I get that. Like my favorite comic book character is probably like the best story I'm reading at the moment. Like if I'm rereading Jeff Johns' Green Lantern, I'm like, hell yeah, Green Lantern's the best hero. But then I'll read, Ed Brubaker, Steve Epting on Captain America. I'm like, God, Cap is the best. Like, I totally get that. I do it for other things besides games. But like, it really feels like people need to like just like dial it down a little bit, just because like
I agree.
It seems fine, but it doesn't seem like it's doing anything else that other games haven't done already. It's doing it beautifully. It's doing it differently. I'm not trying to knock like the expertise or achievement that like the devs put into this game, but it's also like is it really that different than anything that's ever come before? Is this like a paradigm shift in game design? Like, I spent a couple hours with it. I haven't seen it yet. Maybe it's deeper in the game. Maybe I will get there. Maybe I'll see the light. I don't know. But so far, I'm like, yeah, it's fine. Like it's fun. Like I'm having a fun time.
Yeah. No, that's kind of where I'm at. Like I'm playing, I'm like, okay, this is open world, slightly harder and slightly easier at the same time, Dark Souls. And that's pretty much exactly where I land on it. And I think that's a great description of it. Do I think it's a 97 on Metacritic? In the same vein of like some of the greatest games of all time? No, I don't. But yeah, I guess that's my opinion. All right, but Austin, do we have time for the demo discussion?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay,
We can hit it
awesome.
quickly.
George, you want to give us the intro?
Yeah, this weekend, like I shared my PS5 hard drive debacle. So I spent a lot of time on my Switch. I probably gave my Switch the most love this weekend that I have in a long time. And I got so into the demos on Switch because the Switch might be like the only platform that still really like offers comprehensive demos for their games. And that's one thing I think Nintendo does deserve a shout out for. This weekend, I played the demos for Metroid Dread, Project Triangle, Kirby Star Allies, and Kirby in the Forgotten Land. Metroid Dread is awesome. I am not going to buy the full price game. That is just like not really a George game right now. Maybe later, we'll see.
Right.
Kirby in the Forgotten Land, very, very much a George game. I am so happy I got to check that out. I thought it was a blast.
Yeah.
Austin, you checked that out too, right?
Yeah, I did play that demo too. And yeah, and Andy and I played it together because the demo actually has co-op, which is nice. And yeah, I mean, I've been looking forward to this game since they announced it, but the demo really solidified that for me.
Yeah, and I've never been like a huge Kirby guy, but like I'm kind of sold on this game now. Like it feels like Super Mario 3D World cross Kirby, right?
Yep.
Like was that the vibe you got?
Yep, exactly.
Cool. Yeah, I'm super excited for that. The game that like really took me by storm is Project Triangle, because that game's demo is just like the first 3 chapters. I'm halfway through that. I think Coach said it was like 9 hours long. Like that's incredible. Like it's pretty amazing that they give you like that much game to sink your teeth into, and they're like, okay, well now, like after 10 hours, if you want to go into the game, I guess you can try the main game. And that really made me rethink like how like what do you guys feel like the state of demos is in 2022? I feel like they're underrepresented. I feel like they used to be a much bigger deal, and that was like obviously pre-internet with PlayStation Magazine, official Xbox Magazine. I don't know if Nintendo Power offered demos. I wasn't a Nintendo Power kid, but like I know I would buy magazines at the grocery store or like try to sneak them into the cart just because they had a demo disc with like, oh crap, Killzone's on this. A game called Burnout 3 is on this. Oh my god, Star Wars Battlefront. Yeah, I got to try this. And just like doing my best to sneak like a $12 magazine into the shopping cart at the grocery store, just hoping to get like a little taste of those games. But guys, I love the Switch for having such immediate access to demos. And I wanted to ask you,
so
do demos make you buy games?
For
sorry.
Me,
please.
For me, I love demos because I think they exude confidence from the developers, and they keep them honest too, right? There's good demos and there's bad demos. I think the state of demos is pretty poor, but maybe coming back into form, because really the reason they went away in the mid 2000s is because they weren't really financially viable, right? If your game's not great and someone plays a demo of it, they're not going to buy the game. But realistically, you're just missing out on a sale. So they stopped. And then I think it's that, hey, look how great our product is mentality that is having the return of demos come about. Because like you said, you played Kirby and loved it. You played Project Triangle and loved it. And it's just a giant, like, hey, check out our game. Look how good it is. Now, I will say there's really good demos, and there's also like a really bad way to do demos. I think the Final Fantasy VII Remake demo nearly ruined that game for me, because the demo of Final Fantasy VII Remake is like the first 2 hours, and then it doesn't carry over into the main game. You have to redo that.
Yeah.
and it ruined the whole hype for me because I was like, I put the game in, and at the moment where I should have been excited, I was like, all right, got to do this whole 2-hour segment again. So when you were talking about Project Triangle, that's immediately what that put me back to. I was like, oh man,
Your
That's
save carries over from the demo into the main game.
that's awesome. Then there's like really, really awesome ways to do demos, which is the way Final Fantasy 15 did it, where they had specific pieces of game that are not in the main game, but you can only play them this way through the demo. And I thought, and that it's like hey, here's how our game looks, here's how the game feels, the gameplay, and this is what you can expect when the main game comes out.
They did that with Resident Evil 7 as well. They released that like house demo or whatever it was, and that house is in the game, but the actual demo, the stuff that you were playing, was not in the game. It was like a different way that it operated, and different things were happening. And I think it was more so just to show like, hey, this is what the game looks like and what it kind of plays like, and here's like a little taste. And I agree with you. I think that's really neat when they do that.
Yeah.
I knew nothing about Kingdom Hearts, but I remember reading like a preview saying like, if you don't know anything about Kingdom Hearts 3 is a little rough, but you can do it. And I was like, okay, like that's something I look forward to. Like maybe I'll grab that. Maybe I'll finally try this series. And then I played the demo, and like I can't remember deleting something off my PlayStation faster than the Kingdom Hearts 3 demo.
It's a good idea. Good idea. Yeah.
Yes,
Like,
it is
I
a
just
good
remember
idea.
that there was like a ball, right, that you could like hit around with like a keyblade, like you were like a little kid in like a little toy room, I think.
I don't remember the Kingdom Hearts 3 demo. Or
There
are you
were
talking
multiple-
about Final
there were
Fantasy
multiple-
15?
There were multiple demos. I just remember a giant ball. I
Final
might even
Fantasy
be confusing
15
them.
Final Fantasy 15, that was the one where you were like in the like castle area, right?
And you were a child.
Yeah.
And I thought there was a...
God,
No,
that
no,
sounds
no.
really cool. I would have liked that context in the main game, by the way. That would have been dope.
So you played Final Fantasy 15, right, George?
A majority of it, yeah. No, I didn't finish it, but yes.
Apparently, this is coming from several sources, they have gone back and fixed the game. Now, I platinumed Final Fantasy 15, but
Wow,
I
good
never
for
went
you.
back for New Game Plus. And it's always on like my to-do list where I'm like, I gotta go do that. But I've never gotten around to it, and I'm still so burnt by the fact that they cut that game in half, and I never got around to it. Because I don't know if you guys know
Before-
this, there was a whole other continent mapped out with like structure and
Yeah,
everything that you
yeah.
cannot go to. It's completely blocked off.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
We're going a little long, so like before we wrap up, I just gotta ask, what is like the best demo you've ever played? Or what is the most successful demo you've ever played? Like the fastest you've gone from playing the demo to ordering or just outright buying the game? Because I got a story loaded up if you guys need time to think.
Yeah, give your story, because I need a second on that one.
Yeah.
All right, it is 2010. It is January. I think after Martin Luther King Jr. Day, because I'm back at university. I have a PlayStation 3 for the first time in my life, and I am downloading every possible demo I can on it. I know jack about the PS3. I wasn't a super big PS2 kid. I was more into my Xbox. But one game I downloaded, besides Call of Duty Classic, which I got with Modern Warfare 2, and besides Marvel vs. Capcom 2, because I'm a huge nerd, I downloaded the Killzone 2 demo. And that demo blew me the hell away, to the point where I went back into my download list on my PS3, like the new PS3 I got recently, and I downloaded that demo again just to have permanently on my console, because I think that demo was fantastic. It's the first level of the game, which I think is like kind of a lazy demo, but also kind of a brilliant demo. But I just remember like seeing like different textures on like the grips of the gun, and that alone like blew my mind. Like I thought that was the prettiest video games could ever be, was Killzone 2 on PS3. So I played that demo for honestly 6 minutes before I turned off my PlayStation 3. And then I went downtown and just bought a copy of Killzone 2. And then came back up to my dorm. Like I walked 3 miles in Vermont in January, up and down hill, which sucked just as much as it sounds like it sucked. But it was so worth it just to get Killzone 2 and just blast through that game. So that is my most successful demo.
I think the most successful demo for me was probably Bravely Default, because they had a really great demo that I think, if I remember correctly, was like we were talking about earlier. It was like specific piece of gameplay that you could only play through the demo, and it did affect, like, it carried over items and stuff into the main game. And I don't think Bravely Default was on my radar at all until that demo, and then I actually ended up going back and picking it up. I actually got the collector's edition at my dad's house, so I even spent even more money. But I think that was probably the best demo I've ever played.
It's a good game too. I like Bravely Default.
I'm trying to. I don't know that I have a real answer, George, but I will say the second you started telling your story, I was literally searching to make sure that there was a Killzone 2 demo as you were reading that, like before you had even mentioned Killzone 2. Because I vaguely remember playing that demo, and I want to say that is why I went out and bought Killzone 2 and 3 eventually. That's the only thing I can think of, though. I honestly, demos to me, I remember more of as a child, like when you had the Pizza Hut demo disc and stuff for PS1. I have such fond memories playing the Ape Escape and Crash Bandicoot, and I want to say it was Spyro 2 demos.
Yeah,
on those discs.
Yeah, I had the Dino Crisis disc from like a PlayStation magazine, and like it was wild because like don't have like a store that sells video games within like 25 miles of me, like as a kid especially, but like being able to go to like the local grocery store which stocked PlayStation magazine, and like I had a PlayStation 2 in the year 2000, and just like being able to like grab that and play that on my PlayStation 2, that was the coolest thing ever. Like that was like it was surreal to be able to like go to like Bar Harbor, Maine, Hannaford's grocery store and just grab a PlayStation game. Technically, fond memories too for PlayStation 2. There was like the hits package, I think is what it was called. I'll look it up and send the information to Austin so he could tweet it out from the Frameskip account. But there was like one demo disc that had like Burnout 3, Star Wars Battlefront, the original Killzone, I want to say Jack 3 or Jack Combat Racing, I can't remember which one, but there was that. There was like a hack slash game, which I think is a series that Elijah really likes, but like I just remember Dot Hack, sorry.
Yeah.
But there was like, so you're playing, it was like a third person shooter. We could like literally hack into other people's brains and then just like control them. And I just remember thinking that was a really cool way to spend time. But yeah, I really miss those. I kind of wish there was more like curated demos like that, where like it was like, oh, here's like indie quarterly demo pack, you know, you could just like download, like do a single download to check out like, I don't know, 4 to 6 games or something just to check out. Like, I think there is a space for demos. Like Nintendo like really proved that to me this weekend, that like they, when they're done well and when they represent the games, I hope accurately, but at least entertainingly, I think there's a great space for demos, and I do hope they come back.
Funny thing is, I was listening to Sacred Symbols recently, and they had mentioned something that I completely erased from my memory banks, that at the debut, when they announced the PlayStation 4, they said that there was going to be a demo for every game. And I remember that now, and I was like, oh, wow.
Oh,
that never, ever happened. Not even once.
That was a holdover, because that was what 360 did. Like, their rule was that if you have a game available digitally, there has to be a demo for it.
Yep. And then
which
Sony
is
never followed through with that.
Pretty effing good rule, if you ask me.
I agree.
To be honest. Well, like, playing certain games, I'm like, God, I wish there was like a better refund policy. Like, everywhere should have. I'd be okay with demos going away if there was a better refund policy. Like, if you just got like full access to the game. I think what you guys were talking about specifically with like Final Fantasy 15 or Bravely Default, I think that's like really interesting, and I kind of wish there was like something that like was more story based, I guess. Like, there's a new narrative adventure for Ghostwire Tokyo, which I'm actually really excited to check out, and I'm bummed I couldn't check out before this podcast, but it's like a visual novel that like tells like the prequel story to that game. And so like that I think is really interesting, and probably like honestly the best way to go about demos is to like do something different that ties in, just like build hype almost, and like make it part of like the marketing machine. But like, man, if you just give me like a lemon law for a game, you know, like if you play less than 3 hours, you cannot return it. Or if you play more than 3 hours, you cannot return this game.
Steam does too.
Yeah, Steam does too. Or if you don't play it, what is it, like 2 weeks or something? If you're, I think it's like if you stay under 2 hours, it's like 2 weeks, or that's like the cutoff. But it's odd that Sony and Microsoft haven't, and Nintendo too, haven't kind of expanded that because like
Sony
currently,
is super strict. Like they will
Yeah.
ban you if you even charge back. So it's like, okay.
I've gotten one refund from them, and it was when Parappa the Rappa came out on PS4, and I played literally 5 minutes of it, and I was like, "This is unplayable. Like, you literally cannot play this game."
Yeah.
So I got in contact with their chat, and they were like, "Yeah, we'll do it this one time."
I wish I got a
so-
refund for that game. That game is broken on HD
You
consoles.
literally
They-
cannot play it. Yeah,
They should be ashamed of themselves. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I can't believe they released that. That was such a swindle. Like I have no other word for it besides like train robbery. You know, like,
The
it was
only
just, like,
refund
seriously.
I got from Sony was when I bought a set of games as a deal was ending, and the confirmation screen that showed what I was going to pay was not the same as what they charged me, because like in between me pressing it popping up and me pressing it, the price had switched, and they didn't want to give me a refund. I had to like really fight to be like, hey, you guys owe me like $150. Like, you guys really need to give me this refund. And they told me it was only gonna be a one-time thing. They were gonna put it on my account, like a bad report or something like that. And I was like, all right, guys. Like,
bro, that same thing happened to me with Halo, and I haven't touched Halo since. Where like I was really enjoying Halo Infinite, and I tried to buy like the $50 like in-game currency pack. So I'm like, yeah,
Mhm.
like I'll stick around for this game for a minute. I tried to buy it. They're like, oh, it couldn't go through. Please try again later. I tried an hour again later. It said, I can't go through. Please try again later. I'm like, okay. Like I tried the next day. It didn't go through. Please try again later. And then I like checked my card, and I was charged $150 by
Oh my
Microsoft. But
God.
like each
Oh my
time it
God.
said it didn't go through.
That's
I
rough.
was like talking to Xbox support for probably 2 weeks, and they refused to give me a refund.
Oh
And I was
my
like,
God.
no, like here's like I took a screenshot trying to explain to my friend why I didn't buy the battle pass. Like here it is. It said that the purchase didn't go through. They did not care whatsoever. So I spent $150 on Halo Infinite, and I deleted the game off my hard drive because I was so
That's-
pissed at the way
That's
they handled that.
infuriating.
They can go screw themselves. Halo 2 is better. Like eat crap for Halo Infinite. Like I had such a good time with Halo Infinite until like that experience. Like I think that game can go screw itself. I think Microsoft can go screw itself. Like I was so pissed off.
Yeah, that
That's crazy.
Did you think about charging it back, like on your card?
No, I didn't, because they honestly, like, their support system took me so long, where like, it took like 2 weeks to like have a
Wow.
conversation with a human being. And by then they're like, well, it's been 2 weeks. I'm like, yeah, but also like, look at my account. I haven't spent the currency.
Yeah.
Like I have enough for the battle pass, which I think was the only thing I wanted. It was such a bad experience. And so like, I just spent $150 on that game, which I don't know, like I guess is fine because I like Halo, but like that just puts such a sour taste in my mouth and makes me want to like cancel my Game Pass and then just get it back for like the month the next Halo game comes out and then just cancel it immediately after.
Can I-
But Game Pass is such a good value. Like it's infuriating.
Can I just say, by the way, while we're on the topic of Halo, because I feel like I haven't brought this up. I like the multiplayer in that game, but the more I think about the single player, like the more I just never want to go back to that.
Yeah.
And I don't
like
know if I'm alone in
at all.
that, but I like have no desire to complete the single player in Halo
No,
Infinite.
I played like the first couple hours and I was like,
Yeah.
I'm fine, actually. I'm good.
So did
I
I.
think it's the best like Far Cry 3 like game since Far Cry 3, but also I did that 10 years ago in Far Cry 3. Like it's probably the best version of it, but like, bro, this is just kind of like a variation of something I've definitely done multiple times before.
Yeah.
And like, I love Halo. It gives me like the music still gives me chills, you know, but like, and I understand why they felt they had to change, but like, I don't think it was like as impressive of an endeavor as they thought it was. And like, it's kind of my same issue with Breath of the Wild. Like, I kind of just want to be told a story. Like, you guys are great storytellers. Don't make me in charge of telling myself a story with the tools you gave me. And like, that's exactly what Halo did.
Yeah.
And like, I'm getting kind of sick of games Breath of the Wilding themselves. And like, we're finally at that phase where like games have been in pre-production for so long that we're really starting to see the effects of Breath of the Wild on the industry. Because for the past couple of years, they were, you know, like already in development. They couldn't like pivot that much. But like now games are being developed specifically with that as inspiration. And like, I'm already sick of it.
Yep, I agree.
Genshin Impact.
Genshin Impact is literally a clone. It is the same game, and I'm not convinced they didn't take assets from Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, me either.
All right, we got anything else? Any closing thoughts, comments?
Just that I love you and I miss you, Seth. It's been
I miss you too.
too long since you've been on the show.
I will be more consistent now that we moved it to Mondays. That is
Cool.
100% fact because, like I said, every 5 weeks when I was able to be on more consistently, every 5 weeks I had to miss for 3 weeks at a time. So I was like, essentially, I just couldn't be here, except for like 1 or 2 times a month. So I don't know. But I think that's all we got. Austin, you're smiling like you got something to say.
No, I'm just enjoying you with your.
Oh, my little Allen wrench.
Yeah.
Just
He's
playing with it.
He's winding down.
Yeah, slowing her down. All right.
Time to be hitting the old dusty trail. Yeah.
Yep. With that being said, thank you all for listening to Frameskip episode 91. Remember to give us a big old like and review on the app of your choice which you're listening to. And follow us on Twitter at frameskippod. You can follow George at purplebird616 and Austin
Tweet.
at Austin J. Eller or Austin Jeller.
Yep.
He's gelling.
That's
like
true.
A felon.
Remember that commercial back in the 90s? You
yeah,
gelling?
I'm like gelling. A felon.
Yeah,
I'm gelling like a felon, baby. Yeah.
Great.
I work in advertising, and I will never make anything that people remember quite like gelling like a felon. And it's really hard to not take that personally.
All right, guys. Well, I think that about wraps it up. Thanks, and we'll see you next time for Frameskip.